and welcome to this special edition of Young Turks. As you know, we've turned 21 and it is our effort and endeavor to continue to put the spotlight on first-generation entrepreneurs. I have with me two gentlemen who started their startup story in 2006, a few years after Young Turks began chronicling the startup story of the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem. Bhavin, Trivikraman, many thanks for joining us here on Young Turks. I don't think people imagine that you've been around for so long.
Yeah.
How does it feel having been around for almost 15 years?
More. 17 now.
Yeah, 17. Yeah.
No, it feels great. I mean, actually, it's hard for me not to keep going back to all the positive regulatory developments that have happened in the last 3 months. It just feels like we have a new lease on life now. It just feels, it just feels like step one, of a new world. So
I want to because I want to go back to something that you started with. We met right here in New York.
New York, exactly.
We went to NYU. We were getting our PhDs in economics. Met in the computer lab playing games, and that's how it all started.
Decided to get into the gaming business and turn entrepreneur.
And not in our wildest dreams had we thought that 17 years later we'll be back in New York City in Central Park speaking to you. So it's. It's been incredible.
What are the odds of that?
No, very low. It's been incredible.
Yeah. It's been an incredible journey for the two of you as well. So let's talk about this 17-year journey. And you just spoke about the regulatory environment in India, and I could see you smile because obviously it's been a lot of pressure dealing with the uncertainty, not knowing which way this is going to go. But that's recent. What has been the high point, the low point of the last 17 years?
There's so many. It's been a journey like this, right? So there's been so many high points and so many low points. I wish I could pick one up, but before the regulatory stuff you're saying,
I'd pick one.
Okay,
the first one that comes to my mind is the first time something like this happened, right? So when the High Court in Madras in Chennai said that you cannot play rummy. It is illegal to play rummy for money. That's when I was very jolted, because we'd done all our due diligence. We'd read the law inside and out.
This is 2012, by the way.
This is 2012. We were told by the Supreme Court, and then not once but twice, that rummy is a game of skill. You can offer it for money, and so on and so forth. And so we did all of our research and came down here to start rummy. And then for the court rule, that was like a jolting moment. But that
was a low point. But I'm thinking of many high points.
Go ahead. Go for the high point.
One was HDFC approving our payment services. That was the first time a major bank agreed to provide payment services to online gaming. That was a huge deal.
Yes.
Then there was, a low point followed by a high point. The low point was first Google actually blacklisting us because they thought we were a gambling business. And then subsequently, we worked extensively with the Google policy team, and the Google policy team eventually made an exception in their policy and terms in India because they recognized that skill gaming is a legitimate business and rummy is a game of skill. So they made an exception for skill gaming. And, we were at the forefront for leading Google and Facebook eventually to start accepting ads from us, without which, if you look at it, payments and the ability to advertise is like oxygen and water for a business. And so those were, now it goes so far back, but those were major high points for the business.
Yeah, but 10 years on, even after all of these various court battles, many which have gone in your favor, you're still having to explain game of skill versus game of chance, right?
That's true. But to lesser people.
Yes.
To lesser people. Far more many investors, people in the media like yourselves, people in the government, like many more people, understand now that difference than they did back in 2010, 2011. Another major high point is our funding round last year, where we raised 75 million at, 2.5 billion valuation and became a unicorn, major high point for us, especially in a market that was very, very tough. End of 2021, the market's really starting to go down, and we closed that deal in March of 2022. So very proud of that.
Yeah, and you timed it right as well. But you talked about that $75 million and the unicorn status that you've acquired on account of it. So what's the next big milestone that you're hoping to achieve? I mean, are you looking at raising more funds? Are you looking at an IPO a couple of years down the line? And more importantly, profitability, because for a large part of your existence, you have been profitable, or for most part of your existence, you've been profitable, except for FY22, where you did make losses on account of significant spends on advertising and marketing. So is that likely to continue to happen? What's the story on that front?
No, I mean, I think I think we're going to start seeing dividends now from all the investments that we have made in the last 2 years. I think we're well on our way to profitability. That's what I would say. And also, even from the point of view of those 2 years, right, we look at profitability and growth very differently. For us, it's a question of whether when we are going out and acquiring customers, are those customers going to be profitable for us, Because all our customers, whether it be on fantasy sports or on our rummy business, what we are always looking at is what is called the unit economics of the business. What is my cost of acquiring a customer? What is the lifetime value I'm creating from a customer? And as long as the lifetime value of a customer is greater than the cost I'm spending to acquire a customer, it is actually a profitable customer. Might mean that in the short run, you're investing in the business to acquire a lot of customers and driving growth, but the business has extremely good long-term profitability.
Okay, but in the interim, you said long-term profitability, but in the interim, because it's a very competitive space as well at this point in time, is it harder to acquire customers, which also means that do you need to spend a lot more to acquire customers? So this scenario of having to spend more to acquire more, how long do you believe that that's going to go on for?
Well, I mean, so I think I'll kind of turn that question around a little bit and say that we're super efficient in how we acquire our customers. I mean, just before we started this conversation, we were talking about AI. I mean, we have been building machine learning models, data science models, to help us in both acquisition and monetization of our customers for 10 years now, which is why we've been very, very effective at acquiring customers at I would say very reasonable costs. And again, coming back to your point about profitability, as I said, it's right around the corner.
I just wanted to add there that while we acquire a lot of players for our fantasy sports platform, we're also very scientific about cross-monetizing them on other games that we offer, like Rummy that we've been doing for the longest time. And therefore, for us, unit economics make more sense because while we're spending a certain amount to acquire them, we're making that money back much faster because we just don't have fantasy, but we also have Rummy and now poker and other games that we have on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, people are playing fantasy sports, at the end of the day, like fantasy sports is a game in which you're done kind of pretty quickly, right? You create a team, you enter a contest, and then you watch what happens in the game, like how's my player doing?
Yeah.
But
how much of this stuff do you guys do individually? Yourselves. How much time do you spend on your own games or your competitors' games?
We can't. Our policies don't allow our employees. And we are our company's employees to play on our own apps.
Oh, you could play on Dream 11.
Yes, we could, but I don't want to give my money to Dream 11.
But, I've seen a plethora of reports, most recently the Google Bain Temasek report that talks about what this market could look like and the kind of explosion that we're likely to see as far as the gaming sector is concerned. I want to understand from the two of you, because you've been around for 17 years now, what are you seeing that's different? What are the big structural changes that you're betting on to realize this sort of headroom for growth that everyone's talking about?
Right now, in our mind, the biggest one is the regulatory changes that are going to come about, because that is just going to give us so much clarity in what we can do and what we cannot do. It is going to really help us innovate. And unless you have real innovation, you're not going to really see that growth that everyone is talking about. And until now, we were stifled for innovation. You couldn't innovate because the two games that the courts have said you can do, and that's what most people are doing. Some people are taking chances and doing other games, and that's okay. We chose not to do them. But now we all have the ability to innovate, to come up with games that have to pass a few quantitative tests. So it's no longer going to be subjective. quantitative tests that are going to determine whether you can offer a game or not. And that's going to be a game changer. What that's also going to do is legitimize the entire industry. A lot of the operators that are operating under the carpet are going to go away because most people are then going to legitimately, play games.
So again, for the benefit of our viewers who are watching, what he's talking about is essentially the regulation that MeitY has put out, the central government has put out, and of course state governments are operating differently. Courts are bringing in their own verdicts at this point in time, but essentially the central government has said that set up a self-regulatory body, and that self-regulatory body will certify whether a game is a game of skill, a game of chance, whether it's betting, and betting of course will not be allowed and that will be illegal. And so you believe that this, even though it's yet to be operationalized, is the big game changer for the sector?
It is, but I want to add that MeitY is not saying what is a game of skill or game of chance. They're going to certify games based on a certain set of tests that have been laid out. And as long as those tests have been passed, then games will be certified as permissible games and therefore allowed to be offered in our country.
Okay.
And another thing this is going to do is, a lot of investors, a lot of capital has been sitting on the sidelines waiting for clarity, I mean, innovation needs capital also, and so it's really, as I said, like I said it in the beginning, right? I feel like we're back to step one, except this is a super exciting step one.
So it's 2006 all over again.
Yes, but without having to explain to every single person out there that what we're doing is legit, because now the government is going to certify, and help us grow and innovate. So I think it's quite an incredible time in the space right now.
Speaking of capital and speaking of innovation, you're putting your own money to work as well on trying to build out the ecosystem. What's that bet about?
You're talking about Games 24/7 Ventures.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for us, it's not just about, a financial bet. Obviously, it is a financial bet. We will make financially prudent investment decisions. But I just think we have learned so much about running, B2C businesses. I mean, in particular gaming, but we understand so much about whether it be acquiring customers, whether it be delivering great experiences to them, whether it be monetizing them, creating lifetime engagement and value for them. Like, we just believe, particularly from the point of using data science, technology, and AI, we just believe we have a lot to contribute to the ecosystem out there. So we'll be looking for investments where we can obviously deploy capital, but also deploy the learnings that we have had over the last 15 years.
And that's an interesting point, because I want to understand from the two of you the learnings about the Indian consumer and about the Indian market, and specifically the monetization ability of companies like yours when we talk about the Indian consumer. Because everybody throws these big numbers, but within that large addressable market that everybody talks about, the monetizable market is much smaller, and that is what is showing up in valuations now of many of the unicorns that were demanding or commanding the kinds of valuations that they were. So what is the big lesson and the learning there in terms of the addressable market and the monetizable market?
I think fantasy sports is a great example, right? Very, very large monetized user base. Much lower spends per user, but very large user base. I think people in India are willing to spend on entertainment as long as they see value from it, So I don't think gaming per se has that problem right now.
Okay.
Particularly, me and Bhavin talk about this always. Like, our thesis always has been that India will be, even from 2005, that India will be a pay-to-win market, not a pay-to-play. That Indians are going to be stingy with spending money on, like, I'm paying you just to entertain me, but if I'm paying you with some, with a likelihood of winning something back, and where I can deploy my skills and have fun and entertainment, I'm willing to do that. I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing, significant and substantial monetization in the skill gaming space. If you look at the other part of the gaming space, the monetization is actually not that strong. So I think gaming's pretty unique in that sense.
You know, in terms of customer acquisition, what is the current sort of milestone that you've hit? What do you believe that you're likely to be able to do over the next few years, given the trajectory that you've been on?
When you say milestone, you mean?
How many customers will you have?
Well, I mean, right now we have, 130 million users on our platform overall. So very, very excited and very proud about that. I mean, in terms of user growth, new user growth, we're seeing almost 100% year-on-year growth in terms of our new users right now, both for our Rummy and for our fantasy business. So, I mean, last year we saw 100% user growth. So we're new user growth, just in terms of new users we brought onto the platform. So, and I think, again, I just can't help but keep going back to the regulatory part, because it just opens up so many more avenues for the business in terms of new games and what we can do with existing games, that I think that kind of strong user growth for our business continues.
So what could this 130 million look like, in light of the game-changing regulations that have now been put in place? I mean, hazard a guess. Play a game.
The sky is the limit.
Yeah.
That won't give you any points.
No, we do see a meaningful uptake. It's going to really bring a lot of clarity to consumers as well, to players as well. Right? Can I do this? Can I not do this? Now it'll have a government mark. You'll be able to definitely do this, right? So our view is that that this definitely increases both user engagement and the users who are sort of right now sitting on the fence to say, can I try this or not? A lot more of those users will start trying it, start playing it, start engaging with the products.
And out of the 130 million users we have, right, like a most vast majority of them play for free, right? And one of the reasons a lot of players will not make that leap and say, all right, let me try and pay here and play, is an issue of, even for customers, is this legal?
Yeah.
Is this okay? Yeah. Can I trust this app? So now with the new regulations, like the self-regulatory body is actually going to issue registration marks to each app that we'll carry, which actually gives comfort to the consumer, that somebody's looking out for me. And in fact, in this particular case, the government's looking out for me. The government's making sure that this app's doing the right thing. They have the right consumer protection measures in play. They're doing all the right things. My money is protected. Right? And I think that is also going to be game changer. So it's not necessarily the 130 million number, let's say, becoming 500 million, but it's a lot more of those 130 million
starting to pay.
Yes, exactly.
Right. What about the global aspiration? Because we're talking about 130 million in India, and of course you've been shackled and constrained by regulation. But, gaming is a universal phenomena. How are you gearing up for that?
It's very interesting you ask this question, because that's exactly what we were thinking, that because there's so much clarity that's coming into India, let's now focus on India. And that's really what our plan is, at least for the considerable future, is to say that, okay, now once these rules and regulations are in place, what is India going to look like? Right? We've always, from day one, believed in focus. When we started out, we said we're going to do Rummy. There are many games, but let's just focus on Rummy. Similarly, now our focus is on India, given the opportunities that this clarity will create for us. So we're, while, never say never. So, there are always global aspirations, there are always things that can happen. But for the foreseeable future, our focus is going to be on India.
Okay. Speaking of India, and one of the things that everyone's talking about and the impact that it could have across different sectors is AI. And you spoke about it, Thampy, about how you've been using that as far as the business is concerned. But potentially, what could it mean? In a world of generative AI, production cycles for everything is likely to come down quite significantly. I mean, how are you looking at that? Are you looking at it as an opportunity? Are you working that into the plan at this point in time?
I mean, we've been doing that for the last 10 years. This is all, a lot of it is behind the scenes, a lot of that. I mean, just in terms of, see, we're a very, very scientific business. And to us, the first thing that science means is understand. So we've spent a lot of time trying to understand our users. And that's not just, I had an idea in the bathroom that this is what my user is like. To us, understanding a user means diving deep into data and being super objective about our hypothesis and what we understand about our users. But once you do, what you've really discovered is that, hey, these set of users, they have They have these preferences, these pain points, these are the things that they enjoy, and these set of users are different. So now how do I, with the same product, deliver very customized, personalized experiences to these different types of users who have very different needs, very different pain points? That's not something easy to do by just human beings writing code. You know, you've got to get machines to be able to do that, because the number of types of customers on your platform is not 2 or 3 or 5. It's in the hundreds. Right? So I can't manually go around segmenting. Like we let our machines discover player types and then deliver to them experiences that they love and enjoy. Now that's stuff that's been happening for ages. It's just that now, in our company at least, for the last 10 years, it's now that
everyone else is caught on with it.
It's also talking about
seriously, I mean, the two of you have been together now with this company for 17 years, the company that you founded together. How do you sort of split responsibilities, allocate who does what? If there are disagreements, how do you go about sort of getting past those? Because I think these are important insights for many young entrepreneurs who are watching. Because, you know, if you are building to last, then you need to build relationships that last as well.
Absolutely, and you started with the operative word relationship, right? And I think every relationship needs space, right? Everyone needs to have their own space in a relationship. Everyone needs to understand what they bring to the table through the relationship. And I think that's the one thing that Thampy and I have done really, really well. He has some very, very core areas of focus and strengths, like the PhD the program that he's been part of, that I was also part of, but then moved on, has given the company the foundation of the analytical and objective mindset that it has, right? And because it has that, even when there are disagreements, we look at things objectively. We say, okay, these are the disagreements, let's put everything on the table, and then let's objectively evaluate.
You know, I want to talk to you about the organizational culture. It's not just the two of you, you have a large team. So what drives the organization? What is it that, you know, you would like to see being taken forward?
So our operating ethos, what we're calling the science of gaming, has played a major part in defining our culture. We've, like I spoke about, us being very analytical and objective in our decision making. We'd like everyone in the company to imbibe that, to make sure that when they're thinking of a problem, when thinking of solving a problem, they're going back to the data, they're looking at it, they're being objective, they're being very data oriented in their decision making. And those that have agreed with that way of working, they've grown and they've seen themselves make good decisions for the most part in the organization. And I think overall what has happened is that has percolated down to the grassroots level, where everyone is saying that, okay, if I'm to make any decisions, then let me go back and look at the data, let me be very objective, let me ask why, right? Why is something really happening? We call it being why-centric, because unless I really know why something is happening, I can't really double down on those learnings or that success. And then most importantly, be user-centric, right? You have to really live and breathe your user, like we say. And I think those are some of the things that have really helped us make very objective decisions. Because sometimes what ends up happening is that you say, okay, like Thampy was saying, I feel we should do this. But why? Where is this feeling coming from? What is it really based on, right? And those are some of the things that we've focused on to make sure that we're making good decisions and we're empowering our teams to make good decisions.
Okay, so let's play a game to end the conversation, and I'm going to start with you, Thampy. You know, in funding, yes or no at this point in time? Require it, don't require it?
Oh no, we're pretty well capitalized. We don't require any funding right now.
Acquisitions, yes or no?
Always, right? Always. See, I go back to that the whole Games 24/7 Ventures bit that you brought up, right? And we wish that we would have had people who would have guided us through our initial days. And now that, as Thampy mentioned, we've learned a lot. We want to give back. And if there are opportunities to partner strategically with young budding entrepreneurs and companies, we're more than open to them.
Started with Rummy. Where do you see yourself headed now? Now that the world has changed.
Well, we have a couple, you know, at least one, maybe two games under works that we think will, you know, clear the bar that the government has set in terms of what's acceptable or what's not. I wish I could tell you more, but you know, we have a pretty
Because then
strong,
you'll have to kill me, is it?
we have a pretty strong innovation team, and you know, as Bhavin said, like I think the next phase of growth is going to be a lot more about innovation, and you'll see a lot of good stuff coming out from us. You know,
This calendar year, this financial year?
Probably not, but certainly 2024.
2024.
Certainly in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dream 11, friend or foe?
Friend.
Friend. We're working together to create this whole SRB, and on the industry, we're very aligned in seeing the industry grow into something that can be very meaningful along the lines of, you know, contributing meaningfully to Mr. Modi's, you know, aspiration of becoming the $1 trillion economy. So we're certainly working together on that, and you know, there's mutual respect, and we will continue to compete.
Bhavin, Thampy, thanks very much for joining us. We wish you the very best of luck with Games 24/7, and we hope that you continue to innovate and have a lot more exciting stuff from your stable as you find yourself unburdened and unshackled. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this special edition of Young Turks as we turn 21 years of chronicling India's startup stories. From all of us here on the team, for now, goodbye. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues on CNBC TV 18.